Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done in earth.
Thy will be done in earth.
As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Give us this day our daily bread.
And forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation.
And lead us not into temptation.
But deliver us from evil.
But deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
And the power.
And the power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Forever.
Forever.
In Jesus' holy name.
In Jesus' holy name.
Amen.
Amen. Still don't see it on here. We live, bro? All right, I don't see it online. Yeah, we live. Okay. Nah, why? You're fine. Nah, you good. Thanks for asking, but. All right, well, I can't see it online. If somebody else want to pull it up for any questions online. But Q&A, the floor is open. Anybody in-house got questions? Let's see. And no questions in-house? All right. All right. All right, sis. That's all right. You know what, though? I'll probably cover it anyway just because it don't seem like it's going to be much. Yeah, but we got one in-house. Go ahead, sis. Okay. Exodus 22 and verse 28. All right, so for anybody online, the question is, what gods is it talking about at is this Jacob's? Let me see. Exodus 22 and verse 28. 28. Exodus 22 and verse 28. Let's see. Should not delay. So let's start at verse 20 and we'll skip around. So we had Exodus chapter 22 and 20. Go ahead.
He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless.
Go ahead, skip down to, actually you can keep reading at 25.
If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as a usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. If thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him that the sun goeth down. For that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin. Wherein shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass, when he crieth unto me, that I will hear, for I am gracious.
All right, so we see all of this stuff really is dealing with how to treat your neighbor leading up to this, except for where we started at, where he talked about not sacrificing unto any god except the Lord. So where you was at, 27, right?
Yeah, I just finished that.
All right, go ahead.
Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people.
All right, so this is the verse in question. And honestly, I'm not really sure. But obviously the second part pertains to, they quoted this when Jesus said something against the high priest. Even when Paul, said something against the high priest. And, they are like rulers of the people. So I'm not 100% sure, but it brings to mind Psalm 82. I think it's talking about like the priest or something like that, but I'm not sure. That's what you said? Okay. The God's part, yeah. So because a lot of time the Bible puts stuff, it'll say to kind of reiterate the same point, and that's why I say that. So. Okay. All right. So good thing. I need some help, bro. You know what I'm saying? So okay.
It's clear because even that scripture is telling you itself, thou shalt not revile the gods.
Uh-huh.
He's talking about the rulers. Watch this. What do Noor?
Man, I might as well. So the people online can hear. You want to just repeat that for them, or I know it.
All right. So it just says when you read Exodus 22 and 28, it's telling you right there, it says, thou shalt not revile the gods. And then it goes on to say, nor, neither or, saying the same thing, curse the ruler of thy people. So we have an example of that if you go to Acts 23. So let's go there real fast. Oh,
This is the one I was.
You about to do it, yeah, so. Nope.
I just wanted them to hear what you said. You could have finished answering if you went to.
That was it.
All right, that's cool. But this is one of the examples I was thinking about. I said Jesus. All right, that's cool. Okay, yeah. So this is what came to mind because I know they quote that the second part of that here, but I just wasn't sure. But I know how the Bible tends to reiterate. It'll say something and it'll be like nor, and it'll kind of repeat it. So we're going over to thank you, Brother Stan. Acts chapter 23. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1 when you're ready, bro.
And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And the high priest, Ananias, commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Then said Paul unto him, God shall smite thee, thou whited wall.
Okay, so, Paul is like on trial, and he's bearing record that he said, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And he say, and man also in another place because he wasn't trying to offend nobody. But, the high priest commanded them that they should hit Paul in the mouth. So he said something against him at verse 3. Then said Paul unto him, God shall smite thee, thou whited wall. Because this is what Jesus called some of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. He said they like, whited sepulchres. They all clean on the outside, but inside they full of dead men's bones. So go ahead.
For sittest thou to judge me after the law?
Uh-huh.
And commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law?
Okay, because Paul ain't been condemned on nothing. He like, how you hitting me? And, y'all ain't even judge nothing evil that I've done. But go ahead.
And they that stood by said, Revilest thou God's high priest?
Oh, okay. So now this is what we was reading over in Exodus. It said, thou shalt not revile the gods or nor the ruler, nor curse the ruler of thy people. So it said not to revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. And he said, they that stood by said, Revilest thou God's high priest? Go ahead.
Then said Paul, I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest.
Uh-huh. So he said, I ain't realized he was the high priest. Go ahead.
For it is written, Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people.
Okay, and that's basically the second part of that. It said, "Nor curse the ruler of of the people." Should we keep reading, or that pretty much sums it up? Yeah. All right. So yeah, that was what I thought, but I'm glad you was here to it, because I don't like to just, you know what I mean, if I'm not sure. So. Yeah, I was thinking of that, but that applies to everybody. But it seemed to be more so the priest, because it said the ruler. You know what I'm saying? True, true. Right. Yeah, that came to mind. That definitely was the first thing. But yeah. All right, cool. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, it's dealing with even let's look at let's look at the other account where Christ was dealing with the high priest too. Let's go over to, I want to say Matthew, but let me find it first. It's going to be around, if it's here in Matthew, it should be around 27, I imagine. Something similar had happened with Christ and the high priest. That's what I was looking for. Because that's the first two that came to mind before you had gave me that scripture. I mentioned that this happened. So hold on.
Talking about the white sepulchres, or?
Nah. Peter sat without. It might be on. What's it say? Okay. I'm sure to say high priest or at least priest, and it's going to be towards the end of the chapters. But yeah, maybe not. We'll skip it because I'm not exactly sure what it says. I don't see it here in Matthew. Uh, it probably was before where Christ said, "If I done evil, bear record of the evil, but if not," but he may not have said anything necessarily against him. Yeah, let me see. I think he said, "If I've done something evil, then bear witness to the evil, but if not." Nah, that was what Paul just said. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, we'll skip that because he wasn't saying nothing against the high priest. And if I find it later, then because did he say anything there like against?
That's when he cut off the ear.
Yeah, I think I was getting it mixed up with Paul's incident because he Christ wasn't saying no. We know he was as a lamb before shearers. He opened out his mouth. So that's cool. She said that that answered the question. So thank you, brother Stan. We got anything else in house? I still ain't find this online, bro. All right, what you got? All right, I got it now. Uh huh. Just the ocean. Yeah, just the sea. So he covered all three bases. So the question is in Exodus 20 and verse 4, what is the water under the earth? When the Lord says not to make any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. And, obviously, it probably sounds like, it's worded like the water is underneath the earth. But let's go back to Genesis and take a look at something. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. Because, even like today, when we measure in height and depth on the earth or the sea, they got what they call sea level, and sea level is going to almost always be, below the earth. It's like the one spot I think over here is like Nevada Valley or whatever, Death Valley, where the earth is lower than the sea. But that's not common. So, yeah, that too. The sea goes deep. We got the Mariana Trenches. So it's just saying the ocean. Yeah, so like we can read about we'll read about it just so the people online
So would it be don't make them or not to worship?
Well, that's not even the question. I know that's a common question.
Yeah.
But she's asking what it's talking about. But yeah, we'll cover that too, but first let's address under the ocean or under the sea. So we in Genesis chapter 1 and pick it up at verse 1 and then we'll skip.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
All right, so first, it's basically all water. It said the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. That's waters. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Then he created light. But we're going to skip down to verse 9 and go ahead.
And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas.
Okay, so this isn't the one where it's as clear, but basically the earth appeared because it was higher than the water. The one I'm looking for, I think, is in Peter. So let's take a look at that real quick. 2 Peter, I think it's 3. Okay, cool. Yeah, this one. 2 Peter 3 and 5. So we see how it went down during the creation. He said, "Let the dry land appear," and the waters was all gathered together to one place. Now we're just going to see how it's worded here, because again, typically the land is above the water. That's why they got sea level. And that's where the sea, begins at, the level that the sea starts at. But that's going to be, that's why when you come up to a beach, the tide stops at a certain point because the land is higher. The sea is going to continue to be deeper and deeper. That's why we even read it was called the deep in Genesis. But 2 Peter 3 and 5.
For this they willingly are ignorant of.
That what?
That by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water.
Oh, it said in the earth standing out of the water and in the water, because really the sea don't cover the whole earth, but the part that we see is out of the water, meaning it's higher than the water. That's all he was saying. Don't create these images. But now we'll go back and point out the second part of the scripture that Brother Ty was talking about, Exodus 20. And then, actually, let's see something. Hold your place here, because she had asked another part, like what would that be? So let's deal with that. Let's deal with that real quick. All right. Trying to find one that describes it, but in the meantime, we'll pick it up at 1 Samuel 5. Yeah, this is one, but I was hoping for one that they called him what we know him to look like. But yeah. I mean, anybody can look it up online and do a little homework. But this we're gonna read 1 Samuel chapter 5 is about some people that did this. They engraved this image of something either in the heaven or on the earth or under the earth. So we're gonna read about that. And then you could do a little homework if you when I'll tell you what this God is supposed to represent to them. But these other nations had gods for everything. So pick it up at verse 1. 1 Samuel 5 and 1.
And the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon.
Okay, so they brought it into the house of they false god, which they have an idol for, and his name is Dagon. And, this is supposedly where, the type of hats that they wear, some of the priests in the Catholic Church comes from this god, because it's like a fish. It's a fish god or whatever. So some of the top of their hats look like a fish mouth. Even, we see people have the emblem on their car. A lot of the time they got Jesus inside a little fish emblem. So why are they mixing that in with these, creatures of the sea and stuff like that is beyond me. But that's what the Lord was talking about, not to be like, trying to make images of things to worship. Because he didn't show them no similitude of how he appeared. They just saw the fire, the smoke, or the clouds and lightnings, and they heard thunder and heard his voice. But he intentionally didn't show them anything. So go ahead. So the Philistines had captured the ark of God at this point because Israel was messing up, and they brought it into the house of Dagon. Go ahead.
And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again.
See, they got to set him in his place. Like he can't, just like the Lord say in another place, they must needs be born. Jeremiah 10, they got to carry their gods around, and set him up and take him down. So they set him in his place again. Go ahead.
When they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold.
They realized, he didn't just fall over now. The ark of the Lord represents, the ark of the covenant represents God on earth. So he's not having this false God around him. But so this is their God is supposed to represent a fish. Now let's go over to Exodus chapter 12. Because this is what mankind does, is they create these images based on things that they see in nature. based on the creation instead of the creator. So we're going to go over to Exodus 12. And let's see where you talk about executing judgment on all the gods. Yeah, Exodus chapter 12. If anybody see it, where you talk about I will execute judgment on all the, right, towards on all the gods of Egypt. Is it in 12? Let me see. I'll search it because maybe it's not. Maybe it's not in 12. Yeah, it's right there too. Exodus 12 and 12. Yeah. Exodus chapter 12. And we're just going to pick it up at verse 12. Now we're dealing with the ordinance of the Passover here. And God's telling them, you know, about the lamb taking the blood and striking it on the doorpost. But pick it up at verse 12. Go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
See, and when the Lord, you know, delivered Israel from captivity in Egypt, what did he do? He had plagues dealing with darkness. You know, Egypt was big on worshiping the sun. That's one of the type of guys. So that'll be something in the heavens that he said not to, you know, make any graven image and bow down and worship it. He had plagues dealing with, you know, the flies, the locusts, you know, frogs. So they had gods for all type of stuff in Egypt. And he said right here, he was going to execute judgment against, he said, against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute Lord. Because they praying to these gods for whatever, you know, the sun god for sun, the Lord, like, I'm the one that controls that. So, you know, we'll go to one more place. Let's go over to, actually, on the way, let's go to Deuteronomy 4. So, you know, a lot of people today like to have that eye of horrors, they say, you know, or I've seen a lot of people with the tattoos of it, but that represents their sun god, you know, so that'll kind of be like them making an image to represent something in the heavens. Deuteronomy 4. And pick it up at verse 1, my bro.
Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments, which I teach you, for to do them, that ye may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you.
All right, so let's skip down to verse 10.
Especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And they came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness. And the Lord spake unto you out of the midst of the fire, and ye heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude. Only ye heard a voice.
See, the Lord know the heart of man to try to make some kind of image. So he ain't even let them see nothing but the fire and the clouds, and they just heard the voice. But what happened?
And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone.
So that's the covenant, these 10 commandments. Go ahead, skip down to verse 15.
Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female.
So he didn't want to make in the likeness of male or female. What else?
The likeness of any beast that is on the earth. The likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air.
Go ahead.
The likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground.
What else?
The likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth.
So that's what he was talking about. And what else might they do?
Unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven.
See, and that's what makes something an idol. He said, which should us being driven to worship them and to serve them, or as he says in the second part of the commandment, bow down to them and worship them. But he makes it clear here what's under the sea, fishes and even the insects he calls creeping things, you know, even the birds in the air. So he said, hey, I didn't show y'all no similitude of what I look like, lest y'all be driven to do this. Let's go to one more thing. Romans 1. Romans chapter 1. Nah. I guess we'll be out of here early. And we'll just get straight to the point. Let's pick it up at verse 20.
1 and 20?
Yeah. Him that's from the creation of the world, clearly seen. Nah, let's just get down to verse 23. We'll just pick it up at 23. 21, I'm sorry.
Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
Hey, this is what man does. You know, they creating these images based on what they see or what they imagine. Go ahead.
Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man.
See, and this is what an idol is. It's something that man worships as God. So this is what, you know, it's one thing if you got a picture of your family or something like that. You know, you're not bowing down, worshiping that. But he says here they changed the glory of the uncorruptible God. They tried to make that into an image. That's what an idol is. That's what makes something an idol, when you're worshiping it as God. Into the image made like to corruptible man, into what else?
And to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things.
So this was what it was talking about. This same thing he said in Deuteronomy. Now we can go back and read the second part of that in Exodus. Exodus 20. And we'll pick it up at verse 5. But he already talked about it in Deuteronomy. He said that thou shouldest be driven to worship them and to serve them. Because, you know, even, you know, people might not say, they might say, well, I'm not worshiping a tree or whatever on Christmas or something. But look at all the effort you going through to set this tree up. You know what I'm saying? You going, you buying the tree, you know, tying it to your car, you know what I mean, dragging it in the house. You serving this tree. That's what he, you know, and who gave you this? Like when you trace it back, the origin is clearly pagan, but people say, well, you know, I'm not doing it for that reason. Guess what? That's the reason it was given to you, so you could serve it. You know, that's what they were doing when they were doing it back then. You might have lost sight of what the meaning of all of this was about, but that's what it represents. So he said, but go ahead, pick it up. Verse 5. Exodus 20 and 5.
Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them.
And hey, where did the gifts go on that day? Right under the tree. Unless you just standing up. You know what I mean? You're bowing down to get them gifts. Because really, God is looking at it. Yeah, he's looking at it like this is, your God is giving you these gifts. That's why it's all set up like that. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor what?
Nor serve them.
Uh-huh.
For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God.
So now it's clear. Like I used to, might read something like this and wouldn't have a clue what it meant because they just make it seem like God okay with it. But it's literally, he's jealous like a person would be jealous. Like a husband be jealous over his wife because the church, which is the people, the individuals, is the Lord's wife. Those that are truly trying to serve him with a pure heart. That's why, we could read about the fine linen, which is the righteousness of saints that the saints is going to be dressed in. That's why the bride comes in a white dress. It's supposed to represent purity. So he said, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, doing what?
Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me.
Uh-huh.
And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me.
And do what?
And keep my commandments.
So this is how we know we love the Lord, keeping his commandments, and we know that, hey, this is one of his commandments, not to make no images, and try to bow down and worship them. So hopefully that answers your question. Got anything else in-house? Look online here. Okay. Go ahead, sis. Is that the same one you asked me? I got one he asked already that I was going to probably use up some time. She got one more. So, go ahead, Sister Amaya. She said she got one more, and then after that, we'll probably deal with it.
I'll let you know that they don't like to ask questions when they see my face. I know why too, but I don't care.
That's all good, man. What you got, sis?
Oh, it's just funny to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually,
I've never seen it, so I can't.
Naturally,
Hermaphrodite.
yeah, there you go. Hermaphrodite.
What is that term?
Hermaphrodite, I believe.
There it is.
Yeah. Well, hermaphrodite. I believe so. I mean, it's been a while since I heard the term, but yeah.
I've never met anyone.
I've never met anybody either. I guess it's a thing because there's a term, but I don't personally know or have I heard of anybody that was born like that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I really can't think of any scriptures that deal with that, but outside of the word being like thrown around back when I was little, I've never actually like and I've heard people say that like just that like every one out of however many million people are born like that, but I don't personally know any scripts that you can think of. Yeah, that's a good question, and very good question. Yeah, there's nothing I can think of that deals with that. It's a good question. I should have known something like that was coming because I kind of had a discussion about something similar, but not exactly, with a brother like a couple years ago, and I was supposed to look into it, and never really got around to it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So that's gonna give me a little more incentive to ask around and do a little homework on it. But
So would that mean they could have their own kid then? Like, how does that even?
bro, I have no idea.
Would you have? Would you have to go to the doctor and see what's more predominant?
I don't even know, how, like, I don't know enough about it. Yeah, we know in other species they say that they have that asexual or whatever, like worms or something,
Yeah.
but I don't know about people, so I really don't know. Because again, we made after the image of God. This other stuff he just made really for the creations. But that's an excellent question, and I do not have an answer for you at this point. But I am going to have to do some homework and just find out if this really exists. I mean, I guess it's a thing. They, got a word for it, but it's obviously not common. But I can't think of anything that deals with that. So
Huh. It says true hermaphrodite humans do not exist.
okay.
Huh. I just typed in Google. And that was like the first. It says, "Are there any human hermaphrodites?"
Okay.
It says true hermaphroditic humans do not exist, but pseudo hermaphroditism does.
See, that
Where
means
an
it's
individual
fake
has
science.
both male and female external genital organs.
That means it's not
sometimes at the same
real.
time.
Pseudo is like fake, fake science. When people, promote something like, we'll say, being that we're in the truth, evolution. You know what I'm saying? Which is a theory. So they
So
said
they're
it.
saying like internally they would have the female organs, but externally it might show up as a male external genitalia.
But is that under the pseudo part?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So like, but really down to like the science level, internally they're female. It says female.
External.
Yeah,
Hold
that's
on.
what I was
Does
at.
not exist, but pseudo hermaphrodite.
Yeah.
When an individual has both male and female external. So I mean, I don't know. This is the first thing that came up when Brother Ty searched it. This on some science.jrank.org, but it said that true hermaphroditic humans do not exist, but pseudo, which is like, I think, what, existing in name or something only. I'm not sure what that root means, but I know when people say pseudoscience, they saying it's not real. But they say pseudo hermaphrodism does, where an individual has both male and female external genital organs. So type in pseudo, if you will, real quick. See what that word means.
They ain't got nothing online. Maybe I should show my face. You laugh. I already know why. I'll tell you why.
So pseudo means false, pretending, or unauthentic.
How you spell that?
Pseudo. The prefix pseudo is used to mark something that superficially appears to be one thing, but is something else. Subject to context, pseudo may connote coincidence, imitation, intention. So I'm not sure what they mean by pseudo hermaphrodism means, but pseudo usually like discredits the authenticity of whatever follows being real, But again, I'll look into it because
I got something.
okay, what you got?
Just Deuteronomy 23.
Okay, so we're gonna go over to Deuteronomy chapter 23.
Because something was said here.
Right, true indeed.
And I think it's very important to understand.
Deuteronomy chapter 23 and pick it up at verse 1, Brother Ty.
Verse 1. That's all you need. Verse 1.
Yeah.
He that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy members cut off.
Okay, so it's a man because it said he, and privy, private member cut off, or wounded in the stones, the family jewels, as they like to say, shall what?
Shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord.
So.
Not, yeah, I was wondering, because does that mean like you can't get, like where cats not want to have babies anymore? Like you shouldn't do that then?
Obviously, so, you know, if the privy member is cut off, then it must be like,
It's just not good.
Yeah. To where I guess they can't, you know, reproduce is what it seems to.
Why would God have this here and then make you have two parts, knowing that's in the book? I just don't understand that. That's strong, bro. You hear what? Read it again.
He that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord.
So if you ain't entering the congregation of the Lord, you only got one other place to enter into. You know what I mean? So I just can't see.
Pray for healthy stones.
I'm about to move to the back.
Nah, I didn't hear him, so and I'm not asking you to repeat it, whatever.
He's answering the question.
Nah, you know, like I said, I'm gonna do some homework and see does this really exist? Because the first thing we read said it doesn't actually exist in humans.
I don't think it does.
It said that pseudoly it exists, whatever that means. So, you know, we'll have to find out exactly what that. Nah, never.
Somebody should have seen.
Never. Yeah, nah, there isn't. And unfortunately, you know, man is trying to, like, through this wicked science, they're trying to alter a lot of stuff. You know, they got chemicals in water that, even like soy, you know, very common ingredient, you know, but if you do your homework, you'll see, like, most soy, almost all of it in North America is GMO, and it turns into estrogen in the human body. I lied to you, I was in Costco one day. This lady was like doing samples for Vitamix blender, and she was like, "Oh, you want, you know, it's like a little cup of soup, John." I was like, "Oh, what's in it?" So she started telling me, and one of the ingredients was tofu. So I'm like, "Nah, I don't mess with soy. It turns into estrogen in the human body." She was like, "Oh yeah, I know, cause this friend of mine, like, he was on a tofu diet, and like we were walking through the woods, and like he just started crying, breaking down, crying, talking about how beautiful the leaves were." Yo, and she was like, "Dude, you need to stop eating so much tofu." You know what I'm saying? I was like, "Oh, all right." You know what I'm saying? So, like, people are altering. They got other chemical. Yeah, it's soy. Tofu is made straight soy.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff, soy is like a main ingredient in almost everything now. So you know, this is man-made alterations to stuff, you know. Yeah, that's true. They do call that gynecomastia or whatever, but that's man-made stuff messing up, you know, the genes, because stuff can alter your genes. Even like, you know, I won't get into a whole bunch of other stuff, but stuff can definitely alter genes. But that's not how God had it set up. You know, that's just man's wickedness. Because they came out with what's that chemical? It started with an X. You think you might have told me about it? They were putting in the water or something. It sounded like Xyl or something. It's like back when we were in the. Nah, this is affects like, you know, not, I don't want to say gender, but it affects like the way hormones. Because you know what really separates male and female is the one chromosome.
Yeah.
But it's really men have more testosterone. Have testosterone and estrogen. You know, but men have more testosterone and women have more estrogen, but they have testosterone also. So they've been altering food, water to offset the balance, and that's just all man-made stuff. But still, as far as a hermaphrodite or something like that. I've never. I don't know if that actually exists. Okay. Oh yeah, he did work at a farm. Sheesh. So if it exists, you actually seen it on an animal, but yeah. Yeah, so what we just the little brief searches we did said that it happens in animals, but not in humans. So yeah, because some stuff in the animal kingdom, like worms, for instance. I don't certain type of worms, like I think earthworms. I remember learning in school anyway. They call them asexual, so they don't need a partner to reproduce. But that's a okay. I never heard that one, but good question. That makes you think. Yeah, and I hate to be looking up stuff like on the spot, like but I'm glad that we did, because the first thing that came up was like it doesn't actually happen in humans. So if nothing else, then I want to just look at a couple scriptures dealing with something that was asked earlier, which was in Luke chapter 24. If you got more questions, though, I'm not not cutting you off or nothing. But all right, yeah. If we ain't got nothing online, so let's look at this Luke 24, because I remember reading this and kind of wondering the same thing. I was which question? Flesh and bones, yeah. So the question is, when we get to this scripture, I'm not sure which one it is. Luke chapter 24, and it comes from verse 39, but we'll pick it up at verse 36. So the question was, kind of like when you get your spiritual body, or we'll say, does Jesus have flesh and bones? That was the question. Or does he have his spiritual body now, or at this point where we about to read it at verse 39? But let's pick it up at 36. Actually, I'm sorry. Pick it up at verse 34 so we get a little context on the time we're looking at.
Saying, "The Lord is risen indeed, and hath appeared to Simon."
All right, so they telling, some of the disciples telling another disciple that the Lord has risen indeed. Actually, let's see. Pick it up at so the Lord had risen at this point. He had appeared to some people. He had appeared to two disciples earlier in this chapter, but they didn't know who he was. He had appeared to Mary, which you could read about in John. We're going to go there in a minute. And she didn't either. So that's giving us clues as to, because they walked with Jesus for, at least three years. They was around him, so they should have recognized him if he just came back looking the same way after his resurrection. But these gentlemen in this chapter earlier up, they didn't recognize. We'll go up a little bit. We'll go up a little bit higher so we can kind of see that. Pick it up at verse 13.
And behold, two of them went the same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 80 furlongs. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden that they should not know him.
Okay, so, it said their eyes were holden that they should not know him. It said the same thing about Mary in another scripture, and we're going to read that one next. So he walk up and he's talking with them. Go ahead.
And he said unto them, what manner of communications are these that ye have one to another, as ye walk and are sad? And the one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said unto him.
Now this Jesus they talking to, but they don't recognize him so much as to say this. Go ahead.
Art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast not known that the things which are come to pass there in these days?
Okay, so they looking at Jesus like, how don't you know about the stuff that happened to Jesus? Like, are you just a stranger in Jerusalem? Go ahead.
And he said unto them, what things? And they said unto him, concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. And how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death, and have crucified him.
Skip down to verse 23.
And when they found not his body, they came, saying that they had also seen a vision of angels, which said that he was alive. And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre, and found it even so as the woman had said.
Okay.
But him they saw not.
Skip down to verse 33. So they just kind of giving an account of all the things that had happened over the last few days, and they're going to even say, and besides all this, today is the third day. So that's the day that he was supposed to rise. So he seen a couple people on the same day. Keep this in mind, the same day that he rose. All right, let's see, the third day. Let's I'm sorry. So one more thing we're going to go back now, skip back to verse 24, and I'm going to correct myself because what they said was, besides all this is the third day since this happened. But let's see what day it says here, verse 24.
And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre and found it even so as the woman had said.
No, verse 1. Go back to verse 1.
24 and 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Now upon the first day of the week. Okay,
so now say upon the first day of the week. So correction, because I said the same day, but really he would have rose on the Sabbath. But they didn't get there until the first day of the week. And this is key to understand as far as, understanding that he definitely had to have his spiritual body. So it's the first day of the week. Go ahead.
Very early came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them.
Okay, so now let's go over. We're going to skip to verse 33. So the same day, Jesus appeared to a couple people, and he told them to go and tell the rest of the disciples that he was risen. So let's pick it up at 33.
And they rose up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them, saying, the Lord is risen indeed, and hath appeared to Simon. And they told what things were done in the way, and how he was known of them in breaking of bread.
Okay, so they recognized him by the signs he was doing, some of the things that he did when he was with them in the flesh. Go ahead.
And as they thus spake, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them.
So notice what it says. While they thus spake, Jesus himself just stood in the midst of them. So, we're going to see that it's going to make it clear in some other scriptures that this wasn't just a normal, like he walked up to him like, hey, how y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like he just kind of came out of nowhere. Go ahead. So as they spake, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them.
And said unto them, peace be unto you. But they were terrified and affrighted, and supposed that they had seen a spirit.
Okay, so it said they supposed that they had seen a spirit. Go ahead.
And he said unto them, why are ye troubled? And why do thoughts arise in your heart?
Okay, so now we know that, there's spiritual bodies and there's fleshly bodies. But we know, hey, even the angels have spiritual bodies, right? It says in Psalm 104:4, he maketh his angels spirits, his minister a flame of fire. We know they can appear like a flame, like the angel in the bush that Moses saw. The bush was burning but not consumed. they can appear with a person's body. Like what we would have read. We'll read it in the next place. It said 2 men stood by the sepulcher in white apparel, but they were actually angels. Even before Christ ascended up, it said 2 men stood by, but these were angels. So they can appear different ways. We could see it where just a hand appeared to King Belshazzar, and that was an angel, started writing on the wall. So they have different abilities. They can appear like people. They can appear like fire. They could appear, we could see just a part of a body, or they could just be invisible. You know what I'm saying? Like when, some people can't see him. Who was that prayed that Elisha, yeah, that his servant, he said, open his eyes that, that he might see, and he saw all around him chariots of fire, but he couldn't see him until Elisha prayed that the Lord opened abilities. What you got? I was, man, but it's cool. Nah, it's all good. You good, bro. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna act like I ain't need your help today. You know what I'm saying? But where we going with it? It should be clear anyway, because which is the first fruits. So he said, "Why are you troubled, and why do thoughts arise in your